Hi Suboxers, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and this week we are doing our box number 38. That is your December 2023 box. We've been at this for well over 2 years now, and we are on number 38. So you saw in the opening credits what we are making, but let's see what's in the box. All right, so we have a tabletop 10-inch sign and stand. So this is your signpost, and this is one of our 10-inch signs that will fit on the signpost perfectly. And then you'll be able to buy 10-inch signs in the future and have a stand to display them on. So you have your wood pieces, you have a baby wipe in a bag, but it's always handy to have extra baby wipes, okay? So make sure you have those. And we have a few white wedges, a yellow sponge. We have our paints, and there's a glue and some jute. So I'm going to take everything out of my box, and we're going to get started. Now you can spread your box open and paint on top of that to avoid getting paint on your table or whatever surface you're working on. But in the studio, of course, we don't care. That's what our tables are made for. Now, if you do not like the paint we included, you are welcome to use any kind of paint that you would like to use. You can use acrylic paint, or if you've got some house paint left over from other projects that you really like the color of, you can use that. We do use a matte finish paint on all of our products. Okay, but acrylic paint will work as well. You can buy acrylic paint in any department store or craft store, Hobby Lobby and Michael's, even Walmart. They all have a great selection of acrylic paint if you do not like the paint colors we chose. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint my post, and I'm going to use the baby wipe stain method. That's why you have the baby wipe. And I'm just going to dip my baby wipe into my brown paint, and then I'm going to wipe it on the surface of my post pieces. Now you have two of these base pieces that have a slot in them. You only need to paint one of them. They get double stacked, okay? And then paint the large base oval as well. So I'm just dipping my baby wipe into my brown paint and then wiping off the majority of it so I don't have a big clump of paint. And then I'm going to just wipe that paint on to my pieces, and I'll get more paint when I need it, and I'll switch my baby wipe over when it gets too fuzzy. All right, so that's it. That's it, just how that goes. I'm not going to do any more to that. It's supposed to look a little grainy. Remember, you don't have to, not grainy, as in like a texture, but the grain of the wood, you're supposed to be able to see that through. That's the whole point of doing a stain type finish. Okay, remember, you don't have to do anything with this second piece here, this bottom oval. You really only need the outside edges of it because that smaller oval sits in the middle. Don't worry about if you do get the majority of this, that's fine as well. At least you know that you got it covered where it needs to be covered. Okay. Now my pieces might go off camera here, so I'm just setting them to the side. You do not need to paint these two very small circles. They are the buildup at the back of this larger circle, so your hanger has a place to hang. Okay. And then all of these pieces as well. Now, if you don't want to paint your post brown, you could paint your post white, black, gray, whatever color you'd like to paint it. I would just try to stay with a neutral color because you never know what kind of sign you'll be hanging on it. So you don't want to coordinate the post or the little stand to the whatever sign you're making, because you'll hang other signs on it. So you want it to stay pretty neutral. Now, of course, every box has instructions as well as the video tutorial. but I write the instructions after I do the video tutorial because I really don't know what I'm gonna have to tell you until I get to it, right? So the instructions are always written after I do the first demo tutorial. Okay, now I'm just gonna do the signpost itself. Flipping my baby wipe around for a clean spot. I am still using the same baby wipe. Now, same as the picture that you see in the beginning, that's just this, that's this sign finished. I always only do one of these. I never do one, take a picture of it, and then do a demo. I always do just one. We have so much stuff in the studio, we don't need a lot of stuff laying around. Right, there's my post, my sign. And now I'm gonna move on to this here, but I am going to paint my acorns with my baby wipe as well. You can use a white wedge if you want to, but I don't feel like they need a ton of paint to them. So I'm just gonna use that baby wipe method on them as well. I called these acorns, didn't I? They're not acorns, they're pine cones. And you can see I'm getting a little bit of paint on the ferns, but that's okay, or the pine boughs there. I'll fix that when I actually paint them their color. All right, so let's just get that wiped out. And then you can see my pine cones. Okay. All right, we are done with our brown paint. And I'm gonna set this aside as well. And I'm gonna come over to this backer board, and I'm going to use my yellow wedge and my sweater weather paint. And I'm gonna dip my yellow wedge into my sweater weather paint. And I'm just going to wipe my paint on my backer board. Now this will need 2 coats, so we're just gonna put one thin coat. We're putting that coat so thin you can see the grain of wood from the backer board through it. We don't want our paint real thick because one, it will take a long time to dry, but 2, it doesn't cover as nicely when you put it on thick. A nice thin coat. Make sure you're swiping left to right all the way from one edge to the other. See there? Nice thin coat of paint. And you can see the grain through that. It needs another coat. It'll be dry in about a minute here, and you can tell it's dry when you tip it up to the light, it's no longer shiny. Right, so it's just a little bit shiny. Just take another second or 2. Okay, while we wait for our backer board to dry, I'm gonna put a coat of paint on my welcome. I am going to use the Vineyard colored paint to put that on. I'm gonna use the wide end of the white wedge, and I'm gonna dip my white wedge into my paint, and then I'm gonna pounce off so I don't have a pool of paint on my white wedge. And I am going to just pounce that paint on. It's gonna go on in a really thin coat, but much like the backer board, we're gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna put another coat on it. And we'll put 3 coats on this welcome. While we wait for the first coat to dry on our welcome, we're going to come back over to our backer board and we're going to get another coat, the second and the final coat, put on our backer board. Now it should only need this second coat, but if you look at yours and you think that it needs a third coat, by all means let that second coat dry and then go ahead and put a third on it. Mine might need a third coat. We'll see. We're going to let it dry. And put our second coat on our word. And then we're going to let that dry. And while we wait for all of our second coats to dry, we're going to start on the plaid shaped bottom here, the bottom half. And I'm going to paint that and the pine and outside rim here the same color. So I am going to use a white wedge and I'm going to use the fern colored paint. And let's just set that one over here for a second. And I'm gonna just pounce that on. Set that piece aside and we're going to bring this piece in front of us. Now this piece you're going to have to be careful around the pine cones here. You can cut your wedge in half if you would like, or you can use, if you have a paintbrush from one of your other kits, you can use a paintbrush, but I think if you're just careful, you'll be just fine. I'm just going to go a little bit slower when I get up around the pine cone here. Just like that. It covered just fine. Okay, so there's our first coat on that, and we're just gonna let that dry for a bit. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna do final coats on our backer board and our welcome word. All right, so I do think that my backer board needs a third coat, so I'm gonna go ahead. It only takes 10 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and put a third coat on my backer board, just so I got enough coverage on that. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to put the third and final coat on our welcome. Okay, we'll just set that out the way to dry. We are done with that color paint. Now remember, you can save your leftover paint for about a month. It will stay good. Or maybe you have other things that you are painting. You can use this paint on those. We have one sub boxer who likes to use her leftover paint to paint rocks with her grandchildren, which I think is super fun. I love to paint rocks as well, so that's a fine idea. Our paint is exterior rated. It will hold up in the weather and the elements, so it's a great idea. But unfortunately, it will only last for about 3 weeks in these containers. All right, so now we're putting our third coat on our plaid latticey bottom here. I'm sorry, this is only our second coat. Our second coat. It may need a third. We'll determine that once it dries. It looks pretty good, but we'll see. Okay, we're gonna set that aside and we're gonna bring this piece back over and do our second coat on it. Just remember to be careful, close to the pine cones there. All right. I actually think, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so my second coat's on my fern color paint here. That would be the bottom half of your sign and then the top where the pines are. It does not need a third coat. If yours needs a third coat, go ahead and put it on. All right, so we are done painting. We're just going to clean up our paint mess here. And we are ready to glue all of our pieces together. So to glue my signpost together, I'm going to start with my base pieces. And first, open your glue. So you're just gonna take the red and the white cap together, don't separate them. Screw it onto the glue tube and tighten it down. And then hold your glue at the very bottom. You do not want to be squeezing the tube when you take the red cap off, okay? Super glue sticks in an instant. Pressure activates the super glue, so you want to make sure that your fingers stay clear of it. All right, so I put some glue on the non-painted smaller oval, and I'm going to take the painted oval and put it on top, and then just make sure that you have it positioned together correctly by taking your fingers on both sides so that you have the pieces even. All right. And then before I push them together all the way, I'm going to slide my signpost base down onto the tab of the post itself. That way I know that those two pieces are lined up because that tab has gone all the way into both pieces. And then I'm just going to squeeze them together. Okay, so those are glued and I just popped them off the signpost itself. I'm gonna put some glue on the bottom and then I'm going to glue it down to the bigger oval and I'm just lining it up by sight. That's where it looks good, that it's in the center. And then I'm gonna apply that pressure to activate that super glue. All right, so the base is set. So now comes the signpost. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our two small circles that we did not paint and we are going to glue them together. Just a little dot of glue on one and stack them together like this. and glue them together. That builds up a height so your string of your hanger has somewhere to sit. Now we're going to take the larger circle and we're going to take that stack of 2 and we're going to glue it to the middle of the back side, okay? So you're just gluing it to the middle of the back side, and pressure activates, so squeeze that together, and then that is glued. All right, now we've got all these little pieces here, right? These little bars. So we're gonna have to line up where they go. And you won't be able to see it all in the camera at one time, but let me get far enough up so if YouTube cuts the video off, you can see. Okay, that longer one goes on the bottom just before the tab. This one goes right here. See that? Right there. We have this one here, and we have this one up here. Okay, so we're gonna glue all these in place. Remember, pressure activates, so put some glue on the back and then just give it a push on it for a second. Some pressure. All right, now for the hanger part, let's make sure that I'm in the camera frame. I'm just going to put a little drop of glue on the smaller circle at the back, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to glue it down. You can move it wherever you want. This is about 17 or 18 inches tall, so you have plenty of room. You just may occasionally have to adjust the height of the hanger on whatever sign you put on. But I'm gonna put mine right about here. If you wanna move it down a little bit though, you can move it down. So just a drop of glue and then just eyeball that it's in the center. And pressure to activate. All right. And then we're gonna take our sign and then just pop that tab back into the slot of the base, and you have your sign. You do not have to glue this in, but you can if you would like to. If yours is just a tiny bit wobbly due to kerf or whatever reason, if you wanna glue it in, by all means, glue it in. Okay, now we are going to glue our sign together. All right, so your backer board has 2 holes drilled in the top there for the hanger. Now, the holes are positioned strategically through the pine, okay? It may cover just, nope, okay. I'm gonna show you exactly where this is positioned. All right, can you see the hole? Right there is positioned between that wider gap between the pine needles, okay? So there's enough room to get your hanger in there. And then this one is just on the outside of that little pine bough, okay? So that's where you want to position those. I'm going to take and I'm going to run some glue on the outside rim. And then just in some areas of the pine cones. Of course, you're never going to be able to hit all of that, and that's okay. You don't really need to. Just try to get it in a few different places so it has some contact points on the sign. All right, so then I'm going to position it back over top. I know now where I'm going for, and I'm going to match up the outside edges of the backer board with the outside edges of the piece that I'm gluing down. Okay, so this outside edge here. And then again, just apply pressure until the glue is set. Okay. And then we're going to take the bottom piece and we're going to run a line of glue just around the outside edges, all the way around there. And then I'll just hit just a couple center pieces. I don't need to worry about all of that lattice, just a couple of that little center diagonals there. And then I'm going to line this up to the bottom edges of that rim there. And then I'm going to glue that down. And then pressure activates. And then I've got my welcome word, and I'm just gonna glue that into place. So once again, same thing. We're gonna run some glue through the back side of this. You do not have to hit every part. Remember, just a thin line of glue. You don't want it very thick. It will squish out and make a mess. And then we're gonna drop that in there. And pressure that. And then we're going to take our jute and we're going to take one end and feed it through the hanger hole. Your jute is unraveling. This is a new roll of jute, so it's very puffy. If it is unraveling, you can use a little bit of tape on the end of it to make it like a needle to pull it through, to keep it from unraveling and to give it a little more stiffer push there. Okay, so we got our jute through. So I'm going to just bring both ends of my jute together at the back there, and I'm gonna pull this front loop up till I get it as high as I want it. Now I don't want it very high on this sign because this is a tabletop pillar sign and we don't want it to hang very low. So I try to keep a really small, about 3 inches of a hanger there. So once I get that loop at about 3 inches, I just pinch the 2 pieces of jute at the back at the top of that so I know where to tie my knot. And I'm gonna tie my knot right there. And we just tie an overhand knot. Bring the ends through, tighten that down, and then we're just gonna trim it up. Trim off those excess pieces of jute there. And then pull the knot down to the back of the sign and then pull both of your loops up. And there you have your tabletop pillar hanger and sign. All right. Of course, I can't show it to you standing up because I'm working on a flat surface, but you will see it in the opening, and then I'll put another picture again at the end here so you can see it finished. All right, if you have any questions, please let us know. Otherwise, thanks for being a member of It's in the Box. We appreciate you guys.